got with us Ian Troup today. His website is, or site is intothebacking.com. Is that correct, Ian?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the guiding service that he provides. He is a club pro at the Franklin Club. He has his Fly Fishers International certification. And Doug Whitford is coming in. And he is a member of the Canadian fly fishing team. He was part of the 2016 championship team that brought us the gold. And we've had him back doing a lot of things with us, but this time around, it's going to be interesting because it's tips and tactics, top 10 tips and tactics on how to catch more fish. Was that the agreed upon title? I believe so.
I'll go top 10 things I've learned that I think you might help you catch more fish. How about that?
Unleash the Kraken.
That's right.
Okay, take it away, Ian. I'm going to go on mute. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian. So today, I don't have a fancy presentation and slides and stuff like that. I really want it to be an interactive session. So please riddle me with questions so I would have more of a conversation. But I've been a guide for a long time. I think coming out, close to 20 years or something like that, or over 20 years, and fished all over the world and had a fortune of fishing with literally the best anglers in the world, like multiple world champions. And whether you like competition fishing or not, just being around people that catch that many fish, there's a lot of common things that we would share that I thought, I'll do something a little different and talk about kind of what I would say are the kind of top 10 things I either observe or things that I think will help you catch more fish. They certainly help me catch more fish. But I mean, it's going to be me talking a lot, so feel free to interrupt me as much as you want. It's a little bit like a rabbit hole. It all depends how far we want to go down. I'll just kind of keep moving. I'll judge and go from there. You'll probably know 90% of it, but there's probably maybe that 10% or maybe 1%. There's probably a nugget or two in here because you guys are quite experienced anglers. So for those who remember David Letterman, I'm not going to do the top 10 list, and we're not going to count it down with the drum roll or anything like that. And they are in no order. So when you do a top 10, do I go count down? I'm like, except for the first one, I think might be maybe it's in order of the way I thought about it, but we'll go from there. So no top 10, but not to a top 10 list, but the top 10 things I've learned. So the first one out of the gate is that I see a lot of people is don't let them see you or don't spook fish. I know you're like going, yeah, that's really obvious. But I am amazed, I'll start with the grand or whatever, how many people do things like, how many times have you done this, walked up to the water and put your rod tip over the water? Oh, that's a shadow. I just spooked any fish that was on the margin because, all the fish are on the other bank, right? So never on the bank we walk up to. The reflection off the rod tip, just that alone can spook an area, right? So just, if first thing where I find people don't catch fish is you scared the fish before you caught them. You drove home wondering what happened, and you're wondering about the fly and the presentation. Usually I see people waiting way too close to the fish in general. So bit of advice on better to be a little more cautious than not. I know we'll talk about you can judge the water. So fast water lets you get closer. Smooth water doesn't. If you wade in smooth water, that thing's like how many times do you check and stop to make sure you're not pushing water and letting those ripples dissipate. Fishing with the Spanish, who are some of the best in the world, I'm amazed, and the French, which they would say they have the hardest rivers to fish in the world, they probably do, how far away from the fish they say. It's way farther than you think. And that after watching them and how many fish they catch, you realize in North America, we fish really close to our fish. You'll still catch them in a lot of situations, but you'll catch way more. So a couple things, heavy walking on the bank. So they hear you coming down. A lot of people stomp down versus taking their time. Spikes or no spikes, like the grand, you kind of need some types of cleats or something like that, but they're noisy. Like sound travels a lot more under the water. So I know if I'm wearing spikes, it's good because I'm not going to fall on my face, but I can't wade as close as I could with felt or a rubber sole. Seeing the water types. Another one I see a lot of is hats. So white hat, no good, right? So white hat, what's the top? First thing the fish really sees out of their vision is your head. Big bright hats. A lot of people like those. A great way to spook a fish is just wear a white hat or something that really catches a lot of light. You can sometimes the orange, the burnt oranges and the yellow, they're okay if it's fall and you're blending in, but like I don't think you need full camo. Camo waders are probably a great marketing tool by Sims, but I wouldn't be afraid of a camo hat or something drab. I mean, in some of the competitions, guys use face paint, which is a little ridiculous. I don't think we're not in the special forces. That's not the problem. But even your profile. So are you lowering your profile? Do you have something behind you? So if I've got a steep bank behind me, I'm blending in. If I'm standing up high on a bank and I'm the tallest peak, I'm doing a really big profile. Just dropping to a knee might be the only thing that makes a difference. And I've seen that at the Franklin Club where I've just had people just take a knee, they start catching right away and they stand back up, no fish. So that the last one would be things that catch light. Outside of clothes that blend in, white is really bad, by the way, if you wear that. Like it catches a lot of light. It really is. White flies work for a reason because they reflect a lot of light. And also things that catch light, like nippers, watches are really bad. Like, if you're James Bond, you got the Omega watch, that just glinting in the sun, it just reflects, right? It's like what we used to scare birds on the farm when we put little flashy things that scare things. I'm just absolutely obsessed with nothing flashing on my vest. So the only thing I brought to show and tell today was my vest. And like, if you look at my vest, that is really bad if something catches light, but I have drabbed out everything with tape. I don't know if you can see that, but I've blackened out. There should be nothing that can catch light on that when I move it around. I mean, these things were blue and I didn't like them. I put black tape on them. I blacked out this bottle, that dry fly loon, no way with that yellow patch on it. So just don't spook fish. So any questions on that before I move on?
What do you do with your pliers?
I put them right. They can't, this vest is, I can leave this pocket open right here. And I can just, whoops, if I have the right side pocket, sorry about that. Leave this pocket open. I put it right in here. And then they're black ones. Like there's no way I'd use a shiny pair. I used to spray paint them, now they make them in black. So black ones. I'm trying to think anything else insane I've done that marketed it out. Like this bugs me, but I thought that was over the top, that little bit of white there. I might marker that out after. But again, nothing, but again, you can see drab. Like nippers they come in black too. Like, so these ones, I used to black them out if you can, gotta be a pair. Don't have it on. Where the heck is the top of my nippers? Right up here. So these ones, black. Backup pair over here, black. So just, simple things we can do. I mean, we got time on our hands. You can be a psycho like me and put tape on everything or black it out. But the general message, that's a little much, but it's, you don't know. And when you start paying a little more attention, and you don't have to be overboard, but lowering your profile, softer weighting, taking a moment, you do start catching more fish. You really do. And fishing maybe a little farther away than some of the guys who fish really, really close. I watch, again, water will dictate that as well.
So comment then. Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
what about those, like, a lot of the urine thing where you're catching some fish like almost right under your rod tip? Like,
Yeah,
how do you get that close to the fish?
Yeah, so ironically, the book I held up from Lubos, the original Czech way of doing it, which is catching fish right under the rod tip, you can still do it. There are specific water types that works the best in. So that was definitely fast water. Like that was built for originally waist deep, really fast water. Now, I mean, really fast water, fish feel fast, deep water. I mean, wade through them, wade back. I don't know, kick them. Don't care because they feel really safe. They're at the bottom. Most things that kill fish come from above. They're paranoid about shadows and things coming. They really hate shadows. But things in the water, not so bad. That really fast water, But what we used to see the competition guys wearing, we looked like we were like stormtroopers. They had the knee pads and all that. And that was for kneeling down. And we used to crawl around the river a lot. That was to get close to do that nymphing technique, to get closer to the fish without spooking them. What we started to do is more what the French and the Spanish do, is just do the same Euro nymphing, but from 30 feet away. But you're not wrong, but that water type, that fast water type, you can get close to fish. Fast, dirty water, really close to fish. But if you can see the bottom, they can see you. But again, I'll still now, even in fast water, stay a little bit farther back than I used to. And now, whether I catch more of that water or not, but I can tell you the other water types, when it gets thin or shallow riffles, you'll catch more fishing a little bit more in distance. Or just, again, fish close to yourself, just lower your profile, take a knee. Ian James was a mentor of mine. We couldn't figure out why this one lady just would outfish us all the time, you know, not realizing the fact she's just better than we were. But two things, we're both over 6 feet. She was 5 foot even. She was shorter than we were. She was lighter than we were. She was just better, like, you know, but that makes a big difference, right? My joke with the Spanish guys is they're so good is because they don't weigh anything and they're all like 4'2", you know. But, you know, if you're, you know, just think of a 7-footer versus 5, like, you know, makes a difference, right? So, but again, no hard and fast rule on that, but just pay a little more attention, especially in thin water and stuff like that. And just some obvious things, like just lower your profile, stuff like that.
You know, it's funny you should mention that, Ian, because when I was observing 4 of you when you were doing competition fishing, it was you, Evil, Cyprian, and Dave Forgeron. And Evil invariably, a lot of the time, is down on his knees.
Yeah.
Or when he goes to an area in which is casually fishing, he was kind of crouching and casting.
Yeah.
So
Same.
basically, I should dye my beard black then. And
for sure. Yeah, the white's bad. And take all the Liberace chains off from Mr. T, and you're good to go.
All right.
Hey, Ian, question on that topic. Something I always struggle with is approaching from downstream or upstream for exactly that reason. And obviously, if you're approaching from downstream, they're going to see you more often. But walking upstream, I always feel like I'm pushing a lot more water and making a lot more noise trying to walk up the river. And so I'm always like, you know, any section that I'm fishing, I'm always torn between, should I start at the top and work down or start at the bottom and work up? I usually start at the bottom and work up and just try to wade carefully. But
yeah, like I would say the general rule would be upstream is better, and we all know fish face on the current, and you're behind them, and it's better. You're not wrong on and pushing a bit of water. I'm not like, again, it's more about it, or I'm making noise on the rocks. It's not about, like, again, if it's like super like flat water, then I'm just ultra paranoid about everything. Sure. But let's say like a normal current, I'm more like in my boots, and it still happens. It slips off a rock or something. And you're like, oh, crap, that, or you kick one, you hear it, you're like, I heard that, you know, like that wasn't good. But downstream, I'll do much more in heavy, like that check nymphing kind of water, because it's just too hard to wade upstream. But I mean, swinging wet flies is still a really good technique. Streamers is better downstream. So that one thing I've done is really lengthened. Like, it's a great example. I fish wet flies now way farther away than I did. I'm like, okay, like I'm in the worst possible situation. And again, that's why that riffly water usually works better for wet flies, because they can't see you as easily.
Broken surface. Yeah.
Yeah. But if I'm in flat, like, again, going, oh shit, I'm in flat water downstream. Okay. Long casts. Like, and that's not for show. That's, I want to, where do I feel comfortable? And that's where you're kind of using your head and making adjustments, but you're thinking the right way then of adjusting it that way, for sure.
Ian,
okay, thanks.
Yeah.
About fishing still water. If you're fishing still water and say 3 to 5 feet of depth, you're probably using the same principles.
Yep, totally. So like, I'll never stand up in a boat, and I comes from competition fishing, but standing up, I'm like, nope. Like, I mean, maybe if I was in the salt flats and bombing a 100-foot cast, who cares? Like, it has nothing to do with anything, but fish get closer to you. The British guys, they fish something called the hang. So when they come up, like, they'll hold the flies, they'll move back in the boat and put their arm out they'll do a double, like rod out, lean back so the fish can't see you. And the hat, one then I disagree with the UK guys. They wear brightly colored hats so they know each other's team on the water. But I don't know if I'd be wearing a chartreuse hat. I mean, these guys know what they're doing. But bank fishing, just lowering your profile. So like there's one in bank fishing, bringing a stool or something. It looks like you're being lazy. A, it's more comfortable. It's a way better to fish off like one knee or a little folding stool. Way better, because usually the best structure from the bank is right in front of you, 3 to 5 feet out. What does a bank do? Goes like that. Where do the fish usually sit? Right on the bank, 3 feet out. So you might bring them in a little closer to you. And then now I'm getting we're way down the rabbit hole. You guys brought me there. So then if I'm fishing at an angle and I want to stay in contact with my flies, this is my rod. If I'm standing up, my rod and my line goes out like this. If I sit down, my rod angles like this. I have a better direct line contact to me and the fish by lowering my profile as well. So it's a 2-for-1. So you'll rarely see me stand up. If it's, again, same applies, super windy, dirty, whatever, but you'll still catch them. And then I might start kneeling and go, okay, I've caught every fish in 15 feet. I'm starting to bomb cast. There's no reason for me to, but again, but when you start thinking about it, you fish better. It's sometimes that it's easily forgotten. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't, like, those little things, you just catch a few more fish. All right. Well, number 1 out of the way. I feel bad. Well, I'm a fly tyer as well. As you know, I'm not a good fly tyer when I was last year. It's not the fly, it's your presentation. I'll say it again. Most times it is not your fly, it's how you're presenting the fly. So couple like so are you turning, if you're fishing on still water, are you turning over your flies? Are they crumpling in a heap? Like, so if I'm in a river, am I getting a drag free drift? Dry fly. Most people are changing dry flies 100 times, and you better be darn sure you got a good drift with that fly first before you take it off, because it's like the great example we all know is a refusal. My first instinct on a refusal is drag, not the fly. Like everybody goes, oh, it's the wrong fly. I'm like, then okay, good drift, refusal, change. Tippet diameter will dictate. I mean, in a river. I use really thin tippet. That's to get small flies down, to get a better drift, less drag, micro drag. But if I'm on a still water, thin tippet with a weighted, like a tungsten beaded streamer, like a woolly bug or something, that's going to have more movement than thick, stiff tippet. So that same presentation with thin tippet is going to go like that. If I'm stripping the flies, and with 12 pound, it's just going to go like that. No, I give, we switch flies, same fly, you're on the same 10 pound, 12 pound tippet. I'm still on my 6 pound and it's thin. Well, was it my fly? Nope. It was actually my tippet, right? So how are you presenting your fly? So, I spend a lot more time with people on like your techniques. If we're nymphing, are you like getting it drag free, and, dry flies, are you mending effectively? And then changing your angles will change your presentation. So I'm always amazed at just a small turn, especially in a river. Just, you've all done it one step, the fly fish is totally different. So before you blame that poor fly for trying to do its best, just take a moment and go, wait a minute, did I actually present that well? So when I look at the best anglers, I'm still taken aback, and I've watched multiple world champions just fish stretches of water, both teaching us or in competitions and stuff like that. How little they change flies is amazing to me. Like, they just keep going. And I'm like, I would have changed. Nope, still rolling. And in their head, they're like, either no fish there, that fish didn't want to eat my fly, I'm just moving on. But what they know when I talk to them is they presented it really well. They're world champions. So they know that first drift is two drifts are perfect. Like, they're just perfect. So, well, and then after a while where there should have been fish, okay, now I'm changing. Now they're more likely to change for a better presentation. Oh, I'm on a 2.5 mil bead, I'll go to a 3.5 mil. That's the change they'll make, not blaming the fly to make a better presentation they'll do. which is one just, we'll get into flies, but if you don't spook them, focus on your presentation first. You are well ahead of the game in what I've learned and thinking differently about it's not fly first. Any questions on that? Everybody's nodding around going, yep, heard that one before. Women are really, really good at this one, way better than men.
So I got a random question on that one. Do you think the size of the tippet matters when you're fishing a streamer with like a loop knot? You were saying I worry about my tippet presentation for nymphs and stuff and dries. With a streamer, do you worry about that? No.
Well, especially if you're putting a loop knot in it, that's going to put a lot of movement in it. And actually that might give you a better presentation. Like if it might turn over better. It might actually fish the fly better, right? So but the fact that you're putting a loop knot in gives it a better presentation, right?
So you're not worried about like 6 pound versus 12 pound when you're throwing a streamer with a loop knot.
No, and I don't fish loop knots, not because they're not awesome. They are. I can't use them in competition, so I don't want to get in love with them. So I'm with you on the loop knot for fun fishing. In that case, no, that's got a lot of movement. If I want the fly to do that, you might be like, I don't want it to jerk all over the place. Maybe I'll take the loop knot off, and I would more change the loop knot to a standard knot as a change in presentation versus worrying about the tippet. Like streamers, I'd be more worried about breaking off it or fishing in it appropriately. Now on a lake though is different in still water because that can make a difference on how the fly moves, like big time. But from a spookability factor, no.
Okay.
But yeah, no. But if you were saying I'm throwing a nymph on the end, the difference between fishing 6X and 7X is like ridiculous on how better of a drift you get.
Okay.
On a Euro, but good question. Okay. Any other questions on that? All right, so this is one I think women are amazing at this. Pay attention, pay attention, the conditions are always changing. I know that sounds really obvious, but I'm amazed how many people will fish the same thing all day, especially if it hasn't been working or something that was working, stopped working an hour ago, and you're just holding on to it like a life raft after your ship just went down. Right. So conditions are always changing. The bass guys, if you watch any of those guys with the NASCAR shirts, they do this for a living. They make obscene amounts of money doing it. They're actually, when their stuff's working, they're expecting it to stop working. And they're amazing when I watch some of those guys. So the sun, I'm going to say some obvious, but people forget it. It is at different angles all the time. Like that's why evening and mornings and evenings are good. That's a different sun angle. High sun is a different angle. Clouds. How many times have we caught fish when clouds come over, right? So in still water, sun and cloud, they'll move up 1 or 2 feet. They're moving up and down all the time. So if you're not catching fish, you're probably at the wrong depth. So again, it's not your fly, it's a depth. And you were catching fish, then you stopped. They probably moved up. So trout, if you're beneath trout, you don't catch them. Their eyes are on top of their head. They're more likely to move up. Gee, why am I beneath them, right? So water temperature, steelhead anglers here. I was just fishing last week, water went from 35 degrees to 37. 2 degrees, huge difference from 35. All of a sudden, bang, bang, we're banging fish, right? Stuff like that, right? So, and then also when conditions are, you don't beat yourself up all the time. Hold on, it's not good right now. I got to the river, from a water temperature, which it's one of my ones, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but from a water, so you think of May on the Grand, early May, upper Grand. Everybody shows up at 7 in the morning. Don't set your alarm. There's no need to be there. Water temperature is too cold. You're going to hit your peak water temperature at probably 1 in the afternoon. Noon to 1 when everybody's having lunch. Like that's your, show up at 11, fish then at that peak water temperature and then go off. Or no, I'm going to start slow. I'm going to fish slow. It's cold. There's no bugs coming off. They're probably just going to eat isopods or something like that. And I don't expect to catch anything right away. So it's just, and what, barometric pressure, we know when storms come in. So the world is and then the environment is always adapting. Are the birds chirping? So when another guy taught me, he has no confidence when the birds aren't active because the barometric pressure is low. Scottish people, if they drive to the river and the cows are sitting down, they turn around and go home. because the barometric pressure has dropped. And I am with them on the cows. Like, I am not happy when I'm driving and the cows are sitting down. That's the, you know, those people get, I can't remember the name. There's a book behind me, Brian, that has it. But when the people start matching the plants to various hatches, it's all kind of together, but it's always changing. It's changing every hour. So don't be afraid to adapt. And I'll give you one kind of competition story. Fishing, and we're in a boat together because you put, you know, and I realized I only got fish when clouds came over. Like, I was like, we're in Alberta. Where was I? Yeah, I was in Alberta. Was I in Alberta? Doesn't matter. Manitoba. And, you know, every time and I could see that there was just patchy clouds, but neither one of us caught one when the sun was out. Now the fish were probably dropping down, and then they were getting to the level my line was at, probably was the answer. I couldn't catch them when the sun was out. So there's only 10 minutes left. And I looked, and there's a cloud, and I'm watching like this, and I was waiting, watching him casting beside it. And I'm like, oh, he's going to mistime this cloud. And I waited till the cloud was perfect to make my cast, caught the fish, beat him, right? And I knew it, he would have caught it the same as me, because he wasn't paying attention enough that it was just the cloud cover that was making, and we were doing the same thing. And then, because we were going fish for fish, and little things like that make a difference. So just pay attention to that. Women make me laugh because they're like, I mean, second time ever fly fishing, I'm teaching them. They're like, something's changed. Something's changed. I'm like, yep, something has changed. What do you think has changed? They're like, I don't know. Like, it feels different. They're just like, no, I don't feel like what we're doing is going to work now. I'm like, you're 100% right. It took me 25 years to figure that out. They don't know exactly what it is, but they're kind of on it. So my wife thinks it's a motherly instinct, but it's kind of interesting. So, and then the last one would be, you know, is barometric pressure. If you're wondering, stable is the best. It's not an old wives' tale or anything like that. Barometric pressure is amplified through water. They have swim bladders, less of an impact on lakes because they can normalize by moving up and down. Rivers, they kind of just sit on the bottom because they can't normalize. On that page, stable is by far the best. If you like steelhead fishing, you want one tip to catch more steelhead. If you had 3 days of stable pressure, the fishing is probably really good no matter what the hell is going on in the rivers. And then the other one is, what are the fish conditioned to? So people say, well, what's hatching, or what are they conditioned to? So if they're conditioned to beautiful 55-degree water, and all of a sudden we get -10 2 days in a row, that temperature just dropped 5 degrees, not good. Conditions are, gee, that fishing's going to be slow until it even starts to creep up later in the day. So what fishing in the morning might have been good 2 days ago, that water was stable. We had a huge drop in temperature. The fish were conditioned to it, they're off, right? So, but I'm not going to beat myself up in the first hour or two. I'm actually going to go to the river going, I'm going to fish better. And I'm not going to spook them and do all that stuff. But then I'm going to look and go, conditions are going to change throughout the day. What's the rest of the day look like? But it's going to be tough here, and I'll change my tactics accordingly in my presentation. Does that make sense?
Question for you. Do you ever just go somewhere, you've planned the day, you've got there, conditions have changed, you take a look, it's too hot, something happens, and you just say, I'm not going to fish, it's not going to.
Only when the temperatures are too high for trout. Like sometimes I'll go and think the temperatures are like, I don't like anything over 68 for trout. Like, I know some people fish in the like 70. That's when I'll be like, no, like, and it's way too stressful for the fish. The fishing's not going to be good anyways. That's when I'll kind of shut it down for sure. Other than that, or it's unsafe. Or I mean, if it's complete chocolate milk, I'll try to fish it for a little bit, but oops, I had a couple of those. Oops, conditions changed. Oh, there was you go up to with my drift boat going, oh, there was a rainstorm last night that I did not pay attention to. And so we're not going to fish here, right? So in guiding, you do it a lot, but for personal fishing, just water temp being too high would probably be it for me and trout.
Thanks.
And that leads me to my next one, unless there's any other questions, would be, what are we at? Number 4. Okay. Good thing I numbered these. Water temperature. I would have zero confidence fishing for trout without a thermometer in my vest. And William Joseph, the one I use is a digital one. I think there's those little wine ones you can get that are kind of but if you go buy some industrial thermometer, like $30 in there. Like everything really trout driven, make it trout specific, or most fish is temperature driven. And water temperature dictates where you're going to find fish. It dictates kind of everything. And lo and behold, the fish have evolved to align with hatches and all that stuff. So, if you're looking to put your finger on it for a rainbow trout, 58 would be optimal, 61 degrees for a brown trout, 55 for a brook trout. But in that, plus or minus 5 degrees, their metabolisms are cooking. Like that's when they got to eat. So back to 35 degree water, 40 degree water. Okay. Metabolism is slow. They're probably in slower water. Why would they be in faster water? Why would they be fighting? They don't need oxygen. They're not going to be in the riffles. And so I'm going to probably expect them in a little bit slower pockets, stuff like that. 58 degrees, put your fly everywhere. They can be everywhere. It's optimal. They're going to be happy. And then the bugs are coming off all through the day. And lo and behold, that's how the seasons go. May we get hatches, afternoon? That's when the peak water temperature, the fish turn on. It's also the highest. There's more food. Is there more food or is there a better water temp? Good news is they coincide exactly with each other. And then we have those really good late June. Water temperatures are sweet predominantly throughout most of the day. You get into the warmer temperatures. Well, that's why early morning and late night are better, because the temperatures drop from 65 down to 61. And yep, the hatches come off there too, but lo and behold, they're linked in. So water temperature will give you a really good gauge of, again, and if I take water in at 65, 66, go to the riffles. They're all going to be in the riffles looking for oxygen. All the fish are there. Oh, that pool I caught them in like crazy a month and a half ago, they're not there anymore. They're in the riffles now. Why would they be there? There's not enough oxygen. Might be in the bottom of that pool. That's not a feeding fish, so go find that. And that's why tailwaters do so well, because they're consistent water temperature usually most of the time. Grand being a little weird because that lake gets pretty warm. But use a thermometer to figure out what the hell's going on. Joe Humphreys harps on that. Anybody knows him down in Pennsylvania, he's bang on, right? So the first thing you should own, he said, is before a fly rod, I think, is a thermometer. So take a temp. It makes a big difference. And also back to conditions are changing. Did the temp change a lot throughout the day? Is kind of interesting too. So, and is it going to go up or not? Depends on how cold, the air temperature, the sun, stuff like that. But see how much the water fluctuates from when you started to when to fish it. If you're in there for multiple days, that's a big advantage to know when the best time to fish is. And how to fish, by the way. If you're throwing streamers and ripping it 100 miles an hour, water temp's 40, might roll a lot more fish than are going to really chase it. You might get a couple that are kind of a territorial response, but a 58 degree fish, that's eating. That's going to eat that minnow, right? So just something to think about. And so how you strip or fish that streamer, if it was cold water, I would be bouncing it on the bottom more like a jig style and fishing it just with the current versus peeling it back across, so that's an example of water temperature. Number 5, tie faster knots. This is a guiding one. So I don't think I spent a lot of time practicing knots, so I'm pretty fast. But how unwilling people are to change their fly or re-rig or have a fear of losing their stuff because of retying. And I get a lot of, they hand me their fly and I just hand it back and they're like, what the hell? Well, it changed flies. And then they do it and they're there for about 3 hours, right? Really get down to a few knots you like. Everybody's got a personal favorite, and then just get really good at them. You need 3 knots, probably 4 knots, right? I use I think we all use a blood knot for 2 pieces of tippet that are thick. A triple surgeon's what I use, or a triple water knot if you're British, for doing droppers or smaller pieces of tippet together. I do a uni knot for most of my fly connections, and then if not a Davy or a double Davy, but Davy knot only for fluorocarbon because it's a knot that binds in, whereas a uni is a slip knot, so it's really good for copolymer or mono, and it never breaks. And that's it. And then they just get really fast. Our thing in a competition should be 15 seconds ish, 20 seconds to change a fly. The French team will they'll take everything off, leader everything. You have to rebuild everything in, I think it was under 2 minutes, or they'll just beat you with rod tubes or something like that. We're stuck inside. This came, me and James years ago, just sit around, tie knots, get good at them, get faster. It's you know, the old saying, you catch more fish with your fly in the water. You do. 100% guarantee you can do that. You'll catch more fish if your fly's not in your hand. And you will, like, you start to do the math just for fun fishing. You know, you take a minute off, you're tying it on, like that's a minute more time you were fishing, more willing to change flies, more willing to fish that and not care if you lose your leader. I couldn't give a crap if I break off my whole rig. I rebuild a whole rig in like a minute. And who cares, right? But if you're sitting there going, oh my God, if I cast over there, I might lose my fly. It's a lot of work to change it. You will fish crappier, just with less confidence. So pick your favorite knot. Some people like clinch knot, double clinch. I mean, it's a famous one, but it really is just personal. What do you like to tie? But you don't need 55 knots. Just find one that's really good that you have confidence in and go from there. But it doesn't get fast. Everybody's good on the knots?
Just a quick one on that. If you were rebuilding your leader, you have a perfection loop at the end, a loop-to-loop connection, or?
No, I hate loop-to-loop connections with a passion.
Okay.
So I got some really old maxima here. So I will put a loop in my fly line, like a little tiny micro loop. Like,
yeah,
I cut the factory ones off, but the new sleeve ones are pretty good. I find the loop's too thick, like goes through the guides too clunky. So I cut it off, fold it over myself and tie it with like thread, like on a vise, and then just kind of super glue it. So to get that, and then I just clinch knot to that. And then I clinch knot by, I would just, the fly line. I go through here with the tippet and just spin the fly line and then put it through. And it's the least amount of force is on, in my opinion, the fly line to fly leader connection. Most of the fly force is on the fly to tippet connection. That's where I'm most worried about it. There's a lot of stretch that goes through that. I never seem to slip on a clinch knot. It's fast, works for me. But what I don't like about a loop to loop is it hinges. It's flopping around. I don't like that at all. Like, so if I'm holding it, it goes like this, and yeah. So I know the spay guys get really mad at me. They're all switching with their stuff, and I always cut them off and tie it directly.
Okay.
But do what you want. That one. But again, that's what I like to do. But if you if you use two perfection loops and it's faster for you to change a leader that way, go for it.
Question for you on the knot tying. Do you use your forceps to tie the knots?
No. No, I even have a fly here. I can use this. Like, I like
both ways. I just find with a knot tying tool and forceps, I can even tie them faster.
Yeah, like, so whatever's faster. I use a uni knot mainly. So this is going to suck. So that if this was attached to something would have been a lot better. But it's this one, like you do a big loop around your hand like that. And I just want like this, 2, 3, go fishing. That's what I do. And to me, that was a bit on the slow side, but I'll take it. But that's then boom fishing. I don't know, whatever that took. But whatever, again, find your own way. Like, it's much more, people ask me a lot about knots, and I think if you've got knots you like, just get fast at them. If forceps are faster, go for it. Just make sure they're not big, bright, shiny Liberace Pro models that you're spinning in the sun. That would be a disco ball. I would lose my mind, tackle you and drag you out of the river if it was calm water for us. But it better be like the fastest water ever to be doing that, and then not sunny. But yeah, I know a lot of guys, George Daniel, I think, really likes the forceps, and he's a very good angler. So lots of guys use them. All right. Did you hear that? That was my daughter yelling in that. You heard that one? Yeah. Somebody just died. Sounds like maybe an honorable death. She's 11. She trash talks after she kills people. So, all right. So we've done. Don't let them see you. It's not the fly at your presentation. Conditions are always changing. Did you take the temperature? Tie fast knots. I say a lot. If I've had the luxury of seeing multiple world champions. Joe Humphreys, let me go through all his fly block. I've gone through everybody's, who's like anybody I think is amazing. And here's the thing. They all fish the same fly as you do. There's not, like, I haven't seen a single special fly in anybody's fly box. The better they are, the more boring they are. In a river, it is pheasant tails and hare's ears. There's some variations of it. And so what they do have a lot of is the same fly in different sizes and bead colors. And so they'll have just rows and rows and rows of a hare's ear they like. You know, I like a pink bead hare's ear. I think I might have tied it when you're like, okay, then have it in a 14, a 16, a 12. You know, and then they'll have one with a drab bead, one with a gold bead. And, you know, because they know that if they're trying to imitate a small mayfly, it's a hare's ear. But that's just what they do. And they're more, and then so they really have flies, and same with me, that I have confidence in. That's the most important. Pick your favorite flies and go, why don't I just fish that in an 18 to a 10? Or whatever the signed range makes for what it's what you're trying to imitate. Like Pat Weiss, one of the best guys on Team USA. I mean, he could catch fish in a puddle, probably. He comes from Pennsylvania. Again, very tough fishing. He fishes pretty much predominantly pheasant tails and Walt's worms, but a ton of different Walt's worms and slight variations of it. So, like, I'm convinced it's bead anyways. Like, I know I've now dabbled in just fishing beads on hooks, like a little bead head. And I'm not sure the fly matters yet. This is my new revelation, but we won't go. It's not making my top 10 yet, but like, but a glint of a gold bead, my daughter, can you guys hear that? I'm about close to yell down and tell her to shut up. But gold bead versus a black bead, same fly, completely different. Hey, Naomi. Hey, Naomi. Naomi. All right, thanks. So, you know, that's a big change to go from a gold bead to a black bead, right? So just, you know, find your flies, find your favorites, think about more having a working box for the day too. So really good advice is to have an empty little tiny fly box. Think about before you go in the water, I think I'm going to use this, this, and this. So you're not rooting around in them, and then try to fish out of that too. That gets you also in the habit of just not worrying more about your presentation. You probably have a handful that'll work and go from there. But and how similar everybody's flies are. Like, I mean, I was just reading Lou Bosch's book. I have every fly that he put in there because we all have the same ones. Like, they're all the same. Like they almost, like, I don't really worry. It's, you know, talk to the Spanish 2-time world champion from Spain. I was like, what's your favorite fly? Pheasant tail, no rib, no nothing. Like, so just pheasant tail wrapped on a hook. Yep, he shows me got like 100 of them. What do you use 90% of the time? Where do you fish? Fish all over the world. Pheasant tail and a hare's ear. Just pick a variation, pick one you like. For rivers.
Ian, if I understood correctly, you're actually not even putting like anything on the hook. And I mean, you've tried just a bead on a hook, basically.
Works really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, when you tied,
what's that?
In one of your videos, you did. I forget if it was with drift. You did the no-see-em.
Yeah.
Which has just like a tiny little bit of fluff on the back, and I thought, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, right. Like, I think it was hare's ear dubbing on the back, and I thought, does that even really matter?
It just makes me sleep better at night. Yeah, that's it. There's like, that's really it. I just couldn't put my head on the pillow and feel good about myself. I'm pretty sure. So now, I'm pretty sure it doesn't make it different. Yeah, here's an example. So I did that video, and it was a guy reached out, and I was guiding him, and he said, "Oh, these guys were steelhead fishers. It was in the spring." And he goes, they were pounding, and these pinner guys were fishing like crazy. I remember your video on that no-see-em, and he said, he's just like, you know, I thought you were nuts. And he's like, well, because he heard me say, I'm like, well, just like, that's pretty, like, you put that through, you're not spooking anything. He's like, black hook, black bead, stupid little dubbing. He said he put like 3 or 4 steelhead right wherever he just pounded it. And he's like, I wouldn't have believed you until I saw it, right? So yeah. I find that little dubbing just makes me feel better. But it is a top fly on the Grand. If you can't catch a fish on a Grand, I'll put that on. And just because I know it's like an 18 on a 16 hook. And
but okay, and so that was my next question. Do you find the hook size makes any difference in that at all?
Well, I don't like I don't like small hooks just because, I mean, they work. It's just they're small. So
Yeah, well, within reason. Yeah, sure.
But and so now I know a lot of like, so I'm coming around on that one. This is my development. Is I would say the world champion guys, the really best guys, they're obsessed with. They don't like heavy wire hooks at all. Like they will fish. I was just literally telling my friend Colin Huff this today. Is okay. I'm coming because Lubosh mentioned it in his book, and I know. Okay, I've had for like 4 world champions, like be like they look at my hooks going, the hook's too thick, right? And you're like, okay. So they understand the variance of big fish. You got to have stronger hooks. But I'll listen to those guys. They feel it makes a difference. The thinner hook to get away with. They fish some super thin hooks. Like they hand me flies, I straighten them out every time. Like I was like, damn it! Oh, this guy like. But they fish really soft rods for that too. So match it to your rod. But I'm coming around on that one. The lighter the hook, the better. Now, what will make a difference for sure is gold on a hook. I know that, like gold or silver, like that's glinting. That's part of the fly.
Right? Yeah.
That makes a difference.
So, and the small wire is what? It's just better hook penetration.
That's what I thought. I was just saying that today. So for small fish, they like it but with the barbless hooks these days, no, they think it's too much hook. Like they think it actually makes the fly
visibly.
Yeah, they think the visuals off, and I was like, come on. Like, but again, they could ask me how many world championships I've won, and that's a big 0. Right? So now that might be for a high, like I would back pocket that for highly pressured fish or small fish, but they use they like dry fly hooks for their nymphs.
Right.
For that reason, I find I'm using I use really stupid soft rods, and you better be you'll straighten a hook pretty quick. So just balance it, but people do pay attention to it for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, but let me know how it works out for you. I'm still coming around on confidence.
Yeah, no, I've actually been tying like my 16s, nymphs on dry hooks and just inverting the bead. Yeah.
That's what they do. That's exactly
I haven't fished it. Yeah, I haven't fished it a ton yet, but yeah, we'll see.
I just have to remember because they're the first to say, but only for small fish. Like they'll say it right away. Right. Like, yeah. Right. But then I have to remember, okay, this box has dry fly hooks, and knowing me, like how many hooks I could tell you how many times I've got flies from those guys, forgot, fished it, and then straightened it out. Like I was so mad in I lost a fish in Tasmania at the World Championships because I thought it was mine. No, it was from a Spanish guy, and you're like, damn it, straight hook. Like I would have landed that thing. It was like 80-kilometer winds, and I'm fishing like 12-pound line. I don't need a super light wire.
Right.
Hook. I feel like I would have used a saltwater hook if I could. But again, and then they'd be all over bead color, right? So in the competitions, the Czechs, we used to always say gold day 1, silver day 2, copper or black day 3. I would just say what amazes me, and they've all said the same, is the same fly, but depending on where you're fishing, and I think it's the light and the watercolor, the bead color, unbelievable. Like they won't they're like Martin Droz, who's another Czech multiple world champion. He has this fly called Thread Nymph. Every Czech competitor has it in their fly box, every single one of them. There's not a Czech competitor in the world doesn't have one of those. In Norway, when he won, he's like, they wouldn't touch anything but the gold bead. And when I won here, it was black bead. And I'm like going, so you just fish through with beads till you find the one? Yep. Like I know they're going to eat that nymph 100%. It's what bead color do they want right now? And then that's a better way of thinking about it. Let me try every bead color of this fly. Or I was using a silver is probably the one that is outside of gold. Silver is the most flashy, but silver is great in like tea colored water, like the Grand. But if I stop catching, the first thing I'll do is I'll take and put a copper bead on after, but I'll start with silver usually because it's the flashiest just to see. And then I start changing bead color first.
Yeah. Right. I mean, sorry. So I know we're going down a rabbit hole here, but what does copper, silver, and gold and black, does that cover the spectrum? Because I mean, you can spend a lot of money.
I like those. I really like that soft pink, not the
And the
electric
pink. Yeah, yeah.
I actually think the pink is super subtle. Like it's not
Yeah.
what people like. When you look at it, I think it's more subtle than the copper, to be honest. Like, so it's not, there's something about that pink hue though. Everybody's
Mhm.
all like in the
Mhm.
competition scene around the world, the top anglers, you're not going to find them not have pink because we're all like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't speak fish. My joke, every time I ask them, they're not talking, but they like, there's something about that pink color. Like,
But can you, those five, let's say, those five bead
Yep.
colors, does that cover it?
Totally. Yeah.
You don't have to get into these crazy colors outside of that.
No, well, this guy who's won, what's he like 3-time world champion? He doesn't. He will refuses to fish a pink bead, so he only uses 3. He doesn't like gold either. He's just copper, silver, gunmetal, or black. That's it. And he'll vacuum any river in the world. It's it. 3. And he says he's retro, kind of like I don't like the fancy. The guys, the French and the Spanish who come from the really clear, they don't like the colors as much, but they're coming around on the pink. I think they're all going, okay, we may be wrong on that pink because it's
Right.
that's what I think. But I actually feel I'm trying to bring gold back. Gold's been shunned in a lot of, and it's better than people think. I've seen it outfish flies I have because I stopped tying flies in gold bead. I was just fishing silver, pink, and copper for forever. And I'm like, I better get a couple. I better get some black and I better get some gold. So I started using it.
Ian, one of the flies that you haven't really talked about a lot here, but one that I've had huge success with. I'm a big Ian Colin James fan, and for years took some of his tying sessions years ago. The puke fly is an amazing fly, and for Stillwater, I've used it in olive, and it kills. I think it's a great damselfly, dragonfly imitation. I use it in Chile and gave a pile to the guides because they couldn't believe how well it worked. It's an amazing fly.
Oh, 100%. Like, so,
and not well known and not used a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and I'll quote Ian there. He said, I think it's the best steelhead fly ever invented or on the planet. And I still like, if I had my steelhead stuff, like the old vintage white puke fly.
Yeah.
Like keeps going is amazing. But you're right. The olive looks just like a damsel. We used to tie them in olive, black, and white. Like,
yeah.
I mean,
olive's amazing in Stillwater.
Amazing. I was raised on a, they're awesome in rivers too. I mean, so I'll use them as my micro jigs for Euro nymphing. I mean, it's my number one steelhead nymph for sure. And
that's a fly you tie on multiple colors and it's just everything, right?
Yeah. And I just got like, I feel like I was raised on that fly. Like that's what I fished that probably solid without fishing anything else for years, but it was just black, olive, and white were kind of but you're not wrong. And they look like little crayfish. I mean, they everywhere. And they're so
I just thought I'd raise that because a lot of people, maybe it's a secret I should keep, but I catch a lot of fish on that fly and a lot of people overlook it.
No, I did a session for Drift on Steel and I brought it back. And
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. Great. With a bead. Yeah. Instead of, I like the bead chain for Stillwater, but I like the bead for Euro. Yeah.
I agree. And if anybody doesn't know what it is, it's just all rabbit fur in one color. Rabbit fur tail, brushed out rabbit fur. I love it because you probably heard me before. I think flies should be ammo. You shouldn't be afraid of losing them. You don't care if you lose those things, and boy, does it work. Simple. And again, very similar to top anglers. I fish simple. It's not fancy stuff. It's stuff like that. Like, they have similar type jigs, and white is a good one too, because it just, big changes can make, white flies seem to catch in certain conditions. All right. Any other questions on confidence flies? Yeah.
Ian, I have a question about your profile comment you made about the hook.
Yep.
If you're tying a Prince nymph pattern on a jig hook, and is it really important that you tie the goose biops so they're now on the hook point side versus on the top, which would now be underneath?
No. No, and I don't care. I have no way to prove it, but Devin Olson from Team USA, he did a thing, I thought it was interesting. He said, if you think about how they actually drift, he liked it because a jig hook this is the jig and the hook's like this. He's like, the fish actually sees what's coming at him is the bottom. And so he likes the white because they see it's contrast, right? So I don't like sharing Ian James stories. He used to tie, he's like, oh no, you ribbed it the wrong way, the fly won't work. And I saw people would throw it in the bin and stuff. He's like, he's just messing with you. Or that has fibers, you have to have 4, it won't work. I don't think a fish is like, hey, it's more that little bit of white flashing underneath would be good for me. I never tie my jig hooks reverse of the fly. And then
you find you get better hookup. You get better hookup with the jig hook versus a standard.
Yeah, you can, for sure. I like the only thing, let me see if I got a fly in here. Oh, actually, yeah, he's easy. Yeah, there's how boring my flies are, right? That's all I fished the Grand with this year. I don't know if we can see it. Talking about boring flies. There's my number 1 fly on the Grand right there, just a little Waltz worm. But that little between the jig hook here and that gap, just make sure it's not too small.
Right.
Like, so the only thing where I don't get good hookups, I don't like it when some jig hooks are not a big enough, I don't know, what do you call it, gape gap? And so when you have the hook eye bent down, it's no good. So I'll tie a, see if I got it. Yeah. So I don't know if you can see this because they're small. Can you guys see that? I hold that way up to the camera. That's not a jig hook, but I tie the tungsten bead. I put the thread underneath it so the ball sits on top. So this will ride inverted like that, but it doesn't have the jig going that way. So it has a bigger space there, and I get even better hookups with that.
Nice.
But you get good hookups with jig hooks for sure.
Good tip.
Yeah, I like the fly riding inverted, I guess, no matter what it is. It's just some of the jig hooks have a 90 degree. And when you look at it, you're like, that's okay on maybe an 8. But if I put that in a 16, there's no room for the fish to actually get hooked. So just watch that, I guess. So we have confidence flies in different sizes. So find your favorites. You're looking for something to do, tie them in different beads and fish the crap out of them. Less is more, but more variation of what you have. So my next one is, don't worry so much about the materials of your fly. How do they behave? So this is actually linked a little bit to what you were just saying. So I find people really worry about, do I have the right shade of hackle? Your marabou's, there's the odd time, but I think that's a bit of a rabbit hole on its own. Fly behavior should be way more of what you're paying attention to. So sink rate of the fly, like hackled flies, same fly with hackle sinks different than one that without. 3 turns of hackle sinks differently than 1 turn of hackle. An epoxy fly, the obvious, sinks right to the bottom. Same flies again, no bead, brass bead, tungsten. Those behave differently. A tungsten bead, if you jig it in, especially in still water, it's going to go like this. Brass bead is going to go like this, and the other one's going to do this. Same fly, totally different. That's like a bass fisherman jerk bait versus a crankbait. Like, they're talking about how they move, and not enough people are like, how's my streamer guys? How's your fly moving? Kelly Gallup's amazing at this. He's talking about, okay, I have an articulated streamer that cuts like this. I don't want it to do this. So fly behavior is way more important especially on still water. First thing I'll do is see how fast my fly's sinking, so I can understand what it's doing. But sometimes I put a big heavy tungsten bead on flies because I want it to do a really stupid jigging motion. Other times I don't want that. A mop fly, the beloved fly of ruining feathered or mop dusters everywhere. Why does that work when other things fail? It drifts slower than anything else. It actually holds water and it presents slower. An epoxy fly fishes slower than a hare's ear because hare's ear's got hackle in it. They're both dead. You can go and drag free. One's slower than the other though. So that's where I start paying attention. Cold water, slow presentation, mop fly, epoxy flies. I know they're slowing down, even micro slower than a fly with hackle. Even if I get that hackle, like a Prince nymph with no hackle, I'll fish that one. Then I'll have ones with hackle. When a fish are, especially in still water, you want it to fish at different levels. Pay attention to that. Size and silhouette and color matter for sure. But how is your fly fishing? And how is it behaving? And so that's one that can make a big, big difference. That makes sense? And that links to like all kinds of stuff, and people don't really think about it. Although the fellow who asked me a question about the loop knot, he's definitely thinking about how his fly's behaving, because that's making it move more. And then the other one we'll do in presentations is when we're nymphing, we'll jig it sometimes, right? What's that doing? Same fly, but it's behaving differently. Any jig, I mean, we're jigging it. Jig flies move differently than a non-jig fly. It's got that hinged hook. Somebody's saying they tie on jig flies for ice fishing. I was nodding away. It's exactly what I do. And you're going vertical. Now, it doesn't have to be a balance leech, maybe the balance leech, but you know, when I move that, I'm more interested in that hook's going to actually, my streamers, I like jigging streamers a lot now. Like just kind of casting them up and jigging them through. I like ones that have more of a 90-degree hook eye than this one. They just have better jigging motion. Same, I catch more on the ones with the 90-degree hook than the ones with the hook like this. And it's the exact same fly. I just know it moves way more aggressively and the trout react to it. So pay attention to fly behavior. All right, here's my next one. Adapt. Don't be closed-minded like I just was on the guy who has that vertical or me on the balanced leeches. Best line I've heard is remove always and never from your vocabulary. So, you know, another thing I've watched some of the best people, just try it. What's the worst that's going to happen? It's not open heart surgery. Nobody's going to die just because kids do this and they catch fish. They also had that story. Oh, they just did this and it worked. I don't know, just try it. You know, especially if something's like, be adaptable, links to the conditions and stuff. Like, you know, one for me, you know, they're on 22s or 20s or stupid tricos, or I don't know, put a size 12 or size 10 caddis over them. I don't know, 5 drifts. Nothing's working. Who cares? Try it. And don't, like, you know, this is where I struggle with people. Like, there's nothing wrong with some people. They have enjoyment. I'm going to go and I'm going to fish this way all day. Okay. That's, as long as you enjoy that, that is not the best way to catch fish. This was not the best 10 tips to have an enjoyable day. This was 10 tips to catch more fish. That is not the best way to fish. So nope, I'm just only, like, I see a lot of guys and they like doing it. I only fish dry flies. Okay, sit on the bank till they're, but you don't have to. You could fish that dry. You're waiting to match the hatch with your dry fly. I'd be hunting that dry, you know, okay, fine. There'll be some Hendricksons or something coming off in the afternoon. Well, why don't you just put a caddis or something and hunt that, fish that like prospecting with a dry fly. Might as well kill the time if you're just going to fish a dry fly doing that. Do really well on the ground with a size 6 stimulator. Man thinks I'm nuts. I don't know, just raises big fish. I don't know if they eat it. But yeah, it doesn't work all the time, but I'll try it. Like, and so big changes can make a big difference too. Like not catching on little, go big, or go really drab or stupid flashy. Don't be afraid to, I didn't catch anything there. Let me jig a streamer through just to see what happens. You know, stripping dry flies works. Okay, I've tried dead drifting about 100 times. I want to try stripping it. Change the length of tippet, thinner tippet, heavier tippet. You know, maybe I'm too close. Maybe I'm doing this. Like just be adaptable while you're fishing. Don't be afraid to just try it. I get asked that question all the time. Well, do you think my fly will work? I'm like, great way to find out. Let's tie it on the end and drift it through. Yeah, it worked, didn't it? And then did you fish it hard enough? Back to the fly behavior. You dead drifted it. Did you jig it? Did you strip it? Okay, I fished the crap out of that fly. They're not going to eat it. Next, right? So adaptability can make a huge difference. The next one, well, I feel like I should do down. Where are we? 1, don't let them see you. 2, it's not the fly, it's your presentation. 3, pay attention. Conditions are always changing. 4, did you take the temperature? What was 5? We all failed. It was tie fast or not. 6, have confidence flies in different sizes. Only a handful of flies to catch fish anywhere in the world. Don't worry so much about your material. How does your fly behave? That was number 7. Number 8 is adapt. Don't be closed-minded like me. Try it. What's the worst that could happen? And we're down to 2 more. And number 9 is read the water. So this kind of brings a lot of things together. Is it clear? So back to how close can I get? Can you see the rocks? Well, then the fish can probably see you. Dirty water, like, start looking, going, okay, this is fast water. Hey, now putting it all together, what's the temperature? Would there be any fish in the fast water in the first place? Okay, I can get closer. I can do this, but my drifts are shorter. Fly choice in that water. I need something that's going to get down. Do I or don't I? Right. So an understanding of they don't have a lot of time in fast water to make a choice. It doesn't need to be the prettiest fly. I just need to get it in the zone. Ooh, it's really slow water. I need a light fly. I should probably put something with some hackle or something on it. There's a lot of time. I want it to be movement. I'm going to pull out my most beautiful fly because they're going to have tons of time to inspect it. Where's the food going? Follow the bubbles. The bubbles are where the food are going. Oh, there's bubbles everywhere. There's food everywhere then. And then the spot within the spot. Okay, there's a bunch of riffles. Okay, there's a rock there. Oh, and there's another spot that tails out into that. And a fish is going to be holding in front of that. In front of rocks being another one. Everybody loves behind the rocks. I can tell you there's more fish in front of rocks than behind them. So that's another one, like cast in front of the rocks. Oh, wait, when a fish is in front of the rock, it's riding like a surfing current. Ooh, I probably put my fly too deep. I'm going to hold that nymph a little higher. Maybe put a dry fly over that. I'm not afraid to change to a dry fly because I can tie knots in like 15 seconds. And oh yeah, I'm remembering I need to adapt. What's the worst going to happen? I'm not going to catch a fish, but I might catch the biggest one of the day. So and then, I just walked up, I worked up and this is completely different. Well, read the water, adapt, apply everything we just talked about, fish that now. So that really makes a difference to just blind fishing. For those Euro people, the angle of your sighter. If I go an angle sighter like this, that's for shallow water. I need to get deeper, do this. So geez, I got a size 4 mil bead and I just walked in there, I'm fishing ankle deep water all of a sudden. Well, change the weight of the fly, doesn't mean change the fly as fly's working. Well, that good thing I tied ones with no beads. Let me switch to that one, stuff like that. But, and the more you do it, the better you get. But I read the water, not just, all the stuff we've read in the books, they're going to be where food is and it's just sheltering line, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I also read the water and using the computer between your shoulders to make decisions of how you should actually adapt and then adapt to what's happening in front of you. Any questions on reading the water? Still water is a little bit different. It would be wind direction. How long has the wind been blowing in that direction? Food blows in that direction. If you want a quick, easy tip, look at which way the weeds are bent, the side of the bank. That'll tell you which way the predominant winds are. Did they change? Fish face into the current, stuff like that. Look at the banks. How does it actually come off? It usually carries over. People, it's not, just try to use your mind's eye to see how that's probably flats, that's drop offs. Gee, what's the water temperature? Okay. You start to put together using this top 10, a pretty good informed choice. You got to start somewhere and then you go from there. But just take a few minutes to read the water in front of you. And what we do from competition fishing is kind of get used to plotting, okay, about 100 meters, okay, or how to fish, we call it a beat, but I'll say a stretch going, okay, this, and it's planning your way of attack. An example would be, okay, I've got a really light fly on and there's we'll fish up where you don't have to change that fly for a little bit, come back and then switch. That's one, if you don't want to switch flies every 5 minutes, geez, because I'm going to be fit. If I go back and forth up and down the river, I'm going to switch between, there's too much of a distinct change. Well, fish that light fly wherever you could, go back to the heavy one, fish all those areas. That's one way. You might not like that choice, do what you want, but that's reading the water and then building a bit of a plan of attack because you're taking the time to read the water.
Ian, when you plan that attack, do you try and go more subtle to start, like top water, then mid water, and then drag a streamer or something in the very bottom through?
Yep, exactly the way you just said it, 100%. So dry fly, if I'm like legit, the best way to do it, and I know there's fish and it's a good water temperature, dry fly first. So I carry 2 rods, and when I did this, I carry them in my waders, like golf clubs. So you don't do that, but that's what I do. So I'll take my dry fly rod out, fish the dry fly over them. It's the least obtrusive. Yes, don't be careful on shadow and fishing far away. And I really don't wade much when I fish my dry fly now. Like I've learned that from the Spanish guys. I've learned to fish very far away, but I'll just cover pocket, and for a very long distance without waiting or anything, just to see if, okay, fish going to come up for the dry fly. Nope, because it all go, do I ever want to fish a dry dropper here or not? Dry fly first, then nymph, and then I'll always go back through productive water with a streamer. Always.
Sorry, and you don't wade because you're afraid of making waves in the water?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, so I don't want to wade through it. I dry fly with my I can cover water pretty fast and pretty stealthy at distance, like boom, 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 because I know I'm going to wade through it when I'm nymphing. I'm gonna like why, and then I'm going to wade back. I like to fish upriver with nymph and dry or dry dropper, and then at the top switch to a streamer and go back through it with the streamer.
What's the average distance with the leader length? When you say far away, I mean, I'm not sure.
Like leader length or how far away am I fishing? So leader. So again, so don't do this. But I fish 20-foot dry fly leaders. And then I fish about about 9 feet of 7 or 8X off of that. So it's a 20-foot of which 9. So don't do that. But and then I fish really a 2-weight line on a 4-weight rod. So I don't like the thick line. That's hard to cast, but it doesn't disturb a lot of water. That's competition fishing. Just do your dry flies the way you want to. I'll adjust my tippet length to make sure I think I said it before when I was with you guys, make sure you get enough slack up to your dry fly that you get drag free. And then on my nymphing, but I'll again, I've learned this from watching the Spanish. I'll just, because they're the best dry fly fishermen in the world, or the fly fishing with dries. I fish a lot farther away, which is not optimal for hook sets, but I feel pretty comfortable doing that. So I'll just cover a bunch of water, see if they'll come up for the dry or not. Also, back to the earlier conditions would be, okay, I better put a hunting dry fly on. Here's a little trick from the Grand. So if it's, if the spinner fall for Hendrickson's came off last night, whatever that is, mid-May, late May, and you're there early in the morning, you want to throw a dry fly, put a Hendrickson spinner on. There's a pro tip for you. So they're used to eat. What are they conditioned to? They're eating them last night. They'll come up even though they're not rising for anything, because they're just they remember what they had for dinner before they went to bed. So you make sure you're using something that works. I use a lot of caddis when I'm because there's no fish coming up, and then back to you. Then I'll nymph it. I expect to get them on the nymph, and then I'll go through the streamer always, because you can pick up a bonus fish or two. And then you kind of go, okay, what's working? I just went through 3 pockets. They're not touching a dry fly. I'll just nymph it until I see something change. But on top, they're used to lots of, as long as you're drag free and not, again, I should have said, don't rip your line off the water. That's kiss of death. Again, it causes a spray and all that stuff. So be delicate with your dry flies, but they're used to stuff flying, drifting over their head. They don't really care like that. It's pretty natural for sticks and stuff to go drifting down the current. As long as it's kind of drag free, doesn't spook them. Now, nymphs in their face. That's coming. If I'm doing it properly, that's coming right at their depth. That way, that's now intrusive. You can't go the other way around. But there's different themes on that. Some people will fish a streamer first to see if they can catch active fish and where the fish roll, and then go back and fish it. I like the other way better. So I don't know if that was a long answer to your question.
No, but it was helpful, because I'm just trying to visualize it, and that's a lot more helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll harp on that one. Be careful on pulling your fly off the water. Don't peel it off the water with a dry fly. Lift it off gently and then make a cast. I mean, I think back to don't spook fish. I should have said that one. A lot of people peel it off. You got a bad drift, leave it. Let it get out of the zone, pick it up, make it relax with the dry fly. All right, it's going to sound like a fluffy one. I know number 10, if we did 10 down to 1, it'd be a big crescendo. This is the one, though, it's not, is be confident. And it's one I'll say over and over. Kids catch fish because they believe they're going to catch a fish. If you think you're going to catch fish, you will. I'm amazed at how many people lose confidence in themselves so quickly, or the fly's wrong, or whatever. Don't be so hard on yourself. Stay confident. Yeah, we know why we're not catching fish. The water's 35 degrees. It's 9 a.m. Like the barometric pressure dropped. You might not be doing anything wrong. So keep focused on, in confidence, I'm going to catch one. What do I need to adjust? I love this term. I think it's a Kelly Gallup line, hunt your fly. Like fish it with confidence. You're hunting that thing. Like I could tell you, if I shrunk you down and made you that fly, and then drop you in the water, you'd be a little nervous a trout might eat you, right? So why are you so convinced that trout's not going to eat your fly right now? So when you're fishing and you expect to catch a fish, you're ready to set the hook. You catch more fish. Back to watching the best anglers in the world, they always expect to catch a fish, always. And so they're not surprised when they get a hit. They're expecting it. If it's tough, it's just tough. Use your logic and go through as a focus on the right thing. Maybe a tough day, maybe the fish beat you that day, but be confident that you're going to get one every time. Guides bring this. You fish with guides, they usually have confidence. If your guide doesn't have confidence, that's a red flag, right? So, but that's the other one. So when your indicator moves, there's people who think it's bottom. Oh, it's probably bottom. I'm like, or it was a fish, right? And how many times like, no, that was a fish. No, it was bottom. I would not be so pessimistic. Fish are optimistic. They're binary, food, not food. They're way more optimistic than we are as anglers. So it's one that you have to build over time. But I tell you, if you kind of work on the top 10 I went through, like your knots are good, you're thinking about the movement of your fly, you're changing bead color, you're focusing on the right things, your presentation's good. Maybe there's no fish there, move on. Like they just keep moving. And that's the confidence. Watching the world's best anglers is crazy. They don't change the fly as much as you think, and they just keep going. And I'm like, it's been 20 minutes. You haven't had it. They're just, and then boom, boom, boom. I thought the fish were going to be here. I wasn't like, they're just not worried about it. They're going to you're going to catch one. If you steelhead fish or Atlantic salmon fishing, that's your best training ever. Because if you don't go in with that attitude, you could get your feelings hurt. But that's the last one and might be the most important. So don't ever lose confidence. Just reset and believe you're going to catch one. And conditions are always changing. There might be a window where it just turns on for an hour. Be ready for it. Be proactive around it. You do that when you're confident. The bass guys do this like crazy. They haven't caught one in 4 hours. They expect to catch one on every cast. And they're just in their head going, okay, what do I need to do to catch a fish versus I suck, I can't catch one. So don't beat yourself up. You'll catch one or many. And that is my top 10 things I've learned. I am out of material.